Animation, the process of making the illusion of motion and change using a sequence of constant images that minimally differ from each other. That's the official term, and we all know what it is. But what is our perception of it, and how much do we actually know?
The animated drawing has matured and has taken its rightful place among the fine arts.
Animation has a very vast library of different techniques and themes. The demographic can range from kids in their childhood stage to full-range adults. Most of us has watched at least one animated feature, but how do we feel about it? And how has it affected us as a person? A survey was conducted online to get people's honest opinions. The statistics collected includes age, gender, race, and region, which is all taken anonymously. The demographic reached out to includes online communities whose interests are mainly movies, TV shows, comics, video games, and anime, but it includes people who might not be into such things as well. However, an unintentional observation was taken during this process. Many people didn't actually finish the survey. Come on guys, you couldn't answer questions that take less than 5 minutes to complete?
You're despicable.
There's nothing we can do about that, but what we can do is break down each question based on the number of people who took that particular poll. Over, insert number of people for each question, responded, and this is what their opinions are. Out of 200 people who responded to this question, 145 people said that animation has impacted their lives greatly, while 48 said that it affected them a little, and 7 said that it was irrelevant to them. Out of 189, 107 people expressed that animation has shaped their lives by teaching them valuable information as a kid, while 49 people said that it inspired them to pursue their dreams. However, 32 people believe that animation is just for entertainment. Although a very small number, one person did not watch much animation as a kid. Out of 182 voters who answered this question, 40 people view animation as something everyone can find something to enjoy, but nothing too deep. 3 people said that it is more for adults, whereas an overwhelming 139 said that it depends on the subject matter. No one believed that animation is just for kids. Over the course of my time on the internet, I have observed that an abundant amount of people enjoy animation that might be targeted for a more mature audience. This has gotten me to wonder, how many people actually want this? So I asked the question, and out of 176 people, this was their response. 22 said that they would like to see change, but they don't believe it will happen. However, a whopping 154 people expressed that if studios took a chance, there would be a market for this type of animation. Not one single person said that animation would only always be just for children. This obviously doesn't account for the massive world population, but to see that most people want this to happen means that there is a chance that if studios experimented with this idea, there is a possibility that it could be successful. Speaking of animation for a more mature audience, I begged the question, what do people first think of when adult animation comes to mind? Out of 127 people, this was their response. 3 people didn't know that there was adult animation. 10 people expressed that independent films first popped into their head. 14 people chose that anything on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim reminds them of adult animation. Coming in third, 20 people chose shows like The Simpsons. Second was shows like Family Guy with 25 people. And in first place with 55 people was anime or Japanese animation. Although there are many shows and movies in anime that are created for younger audiences, the large percentage is for more mature viewers. So let's get into something that is a huge debate among people. Which animation style is preferred? The options I presented include stop motion, motion capture, 3D, and 2D. Out of 172 people that answered, 13 people preferred stop motion, while a surprising amount of 14 people prefer motion capture. It is so surprising because the track record of motion capture animation has not been very successful at the movie box office. Coming in second, 21 people prefer 3D animation, and a mind-boggling 124 people prefer 2D. These results are surprising because as of right now, 3D is the most popular format for animation. Most television shows and movies now use this style, with Walt Disney Studios even getting rid of their 2D animation department back in 2013 because of the popularity of 3D. So let's now get into movie studios and people's knowledge of them. How much do you pay attention to the studio logo before a film? What do you think of when the word animation pops up? Out of 164 people, 2 people first thought of Nickelodeon. while 3 jumped right to DreamWorks Animation. Warner Brothers took the 5th spot with 9 people, and in 4th, Cartoon Network Studios with 22 people. Pixar gained one of the majority votes with 30 people. A surprising 37 people first thought of the Japanese animation studio, Studio Ghibli. Coming in first place, you could probably guess, is Walt Disney Animation Studios with 61 people. Tying in last with no votes are Blue Sky Studios and 20th Century Fox. So we learned what studio people automatically think of when asked about animation. But do people know the studios that makes a certain film or TV show? I created a list of movies or shows from each studio listed from the last question, but just as a refresher, the list includes Blue Sky, Cartoon Network, Disney, DreamWorks, Nickelodeon, Pixar, Studio Ghibli, Warner Brothers, and 20th Century Fox. Let's start out with the low percentages. For Warner Brothers, out of 167 people, only 32% could associate the movie, and out of 159 people, only 35% could associate the show with the studio, 51% mistaking it for Cartoon Network. Both of these use 2D animation. Out of 163 people, 33% were able to identify 20th Century Fox's 2D feature film, 46% mistaking it for Disney. Out of 159 people, only 33% were able to recognize a 3D film created by Blue Sky Studios. Let's get into more higher percentages. Out of 177 people, only a surprising 51% were able to associate a specific 3D feature film with Disney. However, out of 159 people, 62% were able to identify Disney's 2D feature with the studio. For DreamWorks, out of 162 people, 75% could associate the 3D feature film. However, out of 159 people, only 35% recognized their 2D film with the studio. Pixar, probably the most well-known 3D animation studio out there. But can people recognize the film that belongs to them? Out of 163 people, 82% could identify their studio with the film. Coming in third place for highest percentage is Nickelodeon. Out of 164 people, 84% could associate the studio with the show. In second place, out of 160 people, 93% could name the Cartoon Network show. Coming in first place, surprisingly, is Studio Ghibli. Out of 164 people, 95% could recognize the studio with their film. Since Studio Ghibli is a Japanese studio, it is quite surprising that a lot of Western voters could recognize their feature film. This either shows how much of a staple visually the studio has, or people were able to use process of elimination. Let's look at some of the overall statistics on the quiz. The test was taken 187 times. The completion rate was 84%. The average time spent was 2 minutes and 51 seconds. And the most important stat, the average score was 59%, which means that the population gets an F. Taking away with 130 people the knowledge they now possess about animation, 97 will indeed watch more animation, and to some, it has opened their perception of the subject. However, there were a good amount of people that felt differently. 14 people will probably not watch more animation in the future. 13 said that there is a possibility, but they are still indifferent about it. 5 people flat out lied and said they would watch more animation, but they really wouldn't. And 1 person expressed that they would only watch animation with their children or young relatives. Looking at the demographic, it doesn't matter where you live or what race or age you are, animation is a relevant part of our lives, and although only a small percentage of us continues to watch animation to adulthood, anyone can find something to enjoy, and it's still a part of all of us. Whether we see an advertisement on television, billboards, or online, or if we sit down and watch a show or film with our family. Whether one looks at it from an artistic point of view or just something for entertainment, we all know what it is and how integrated into our culture it has become.